This is Saturday Morning Mysteries.
And we're your hosts, Alexis and Grace.
Hi everyone. Welcome to Saturday Morning Mysteries. I'm Grace. That's Alexis.
I'm Alexis. Hello.
Allie, Bird. You got a lot of names. You wear a lot of hats.
Wear a lot of hats. A lot of shoes too, when I want.
Want to give a shout out both to your background research of us in trying to think of how to come up with the name of it, of the callback essentially to, Saturday mornings you get up. For me, it was a bowl of cereal. If I, had some Fruit Loops, that was my top pick, I would say, or tricks, and have the marathon of, oh shit, I got a coffee delivery. Hold on.
Oh boy.
Hold on. Thank you. Before we start
Get that coffee, girl.
Oh man. Wow. Thank you. Back to the Saturday morning. And now as an adult, it's coffee instead of cereal, but also cereal still. And just the growing up of how much we loved waking up and having the Saturday morning lineup of all of our favorite cartoons for, a few hours every Saturday, which I don't know, I guess if kids still do that because it's all streaming services.
True. I don't know. I'm not sure what it's like to live with a kid.
I know. Yeah, truly.
I mean, I guess if your parents don't have cable, then but man, you have to have like every single streaming service to like get the same effect and, like the same benefit that we had growing up where we could just change through whatever channel and watch like Pokemon 1 minute, Scooby-Doo the next.
Yeah, on the commercial breaks.
Hey Arnold. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
record those. Well, I actually won't get into the recording part because that may not have
before
been
DVR shit.
Exactly.
Recording still. I do want to shout out to the Cincinnati Cable, which is where we grew up. Neither of us live there anymore, but that's where we're from.
Yeah.
That 27 was Cartoon Network and channel 28 was Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
So you could just hop one click away, and it was
right back and forth.
It was genius.
Chef's kiss. Beautiful.
It was so smart.
Absolutely beautiful. I wonder if it's like that everywhere. If they always like put them together, depending on the cable provider. Probably not.
Yeah.
I think they were on something.
Yeah. I don't know. Leave us a comment, I guess, wherever you're enjoying this about what your experience was for that.
Yeah. Were they like neighboring channels, all your favorite cartoon channels growing up? Because then you get into like HD and they would have separate HD channels and you had like Boomerang in there and you had like the Noggin.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I know, right?
Dude. Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing. Tell me.
Got it.
Your tale.
Go ahead.
No, I'm ready. I'm ready to be told a story.
You're ready to be told my tale. All righty. Well, so you chose the first episode from the classic Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? I instead chose the very first episode of the not as classic, but almost as good, the Scooby-Doo Show, which I believe, you already said it first, that Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Is the original, the one that started it all, the OG. Mm-hmm. But the Scooby-Doo Show came around later, I believe, in the early 80s, late 70s. I didn't type up like the whole history for it like you were a bit fancier than I was. But if memory serves correct, it was actually a spin-off of what was originally called like Scooby-Doo and the Dynamite Hour or something. So there was a different Saturday morning programming block for Scooby-Doo. And eventually, again, demo research showed that they wanted to just do a different a reincarnation of Scooby-Doo rather than this like joint program mixing Scooby-Doo shorts with other cartoon shorts. And so either from that or preceding that, again, a little rough on my Scooby-Doo history for this one, the Scooby-Doo Show was born. And so it's interesting. It's got a little bit of a different take when I go back and like compare that to Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Or like Scooby-Doo and the Scooby and Scrappy-Doo, whatever, like all the different shows. It definitely has a different feel than Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Obviously, there's still the classic villain of the week type of scenario, but it's almost not as like groovy, so to speak, as Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Like there aren't those like super fun chase scenes with music in every episode where they're going through different doors and like hiding and then, there's not all that, but there are some pretty interesting crimes that go down and some pretty interesting hauntings.
Ooh.
And so, in the very first one, they knock it right off. They just jump right into these crimes, and they start with burglary, in fact. And what's going on here, though, is it's more than just burglaries. It's also haunted buildings.
Yeah.
Haunted by, right? How can you separate those two things, right? Naturally, if there's a cat burglar, then there's also going to be a specter ghost somewhere nearby.
Mm-hmm.
So today, I am going to tell you about the mysterious case of the high-rise safe burglaries. So there was a string of burglaries that were occurring in several downtown high-rise condo or like apartment buildings, right? But in all of these cases, the burglars were only taking money from safes in those residences. So it's not like someone was coming home and like, holy shit, my couch is gone or my TV is gone or whatever, because those would be like impossible to carry out without anyone noticing. But also it was like stumping the investigators, like, why are only the safes being robbed? No jewelry, no random other things around the houses.
Also, quick side note, I've never met anybody who has an actual safe in their house. Did Coolsville just not use a banking system at this time?
It wasn't invented yet. No, I will say I do know people with safes.
Okay.
I do. I won't disclose who those people are because
I think the code and what's their address?
So their address is some people still have them.
Okay.
I mean, some people who own guns.
Well, yes. I mean like a cash safe. Like I know like gun safes and stuff and like safety deposit box, but like safe in the wall behind a picture.
Right, just like hiding, you do the secret combo.
That's what I'm picturing here, and like that it's just like piles of cash in there. Mm-hmm. But maybe you'll get to it.
Perhaps not. Actually, I think that this was just like back in the day when people didn't necessarily want to go to the bank every single day or didn't trust the bank. I mean, I guess it was. I was gonna say it was kind of like post-Depression. Obviously, it was post-Depression. Anything after 1929 was post-Depression. But maybe people were still in that mindset of keep your things at home rather than tied up in the bank. Who knows? I think that public sentiment on the way that we store our money has definitely changed since then. But nonetheless,
it's also about to be the like Wall Street boom. So like we're probably not there yet in the 80s, or it's all like cash for Coke because it's the 80s.
It's a little bit of both. Or perhaps all that they have in the safe is just Coke. There's just cocaine in there.
That's why we don't see the safes that they're robbing.
Exactly. The money is in the bank. This is just for the illegal stuff.
Good point.
Anyway. So these high-rise safe burglaries are going down. And coincidentally, all these safe burglaries are happening in different buildings, but the buildings are all near each other. Mm-hmm. And all of these buildings surround another single construction site for, you guessed it, another high-rise building. So you've got this block of just a bunch of high-rises right next to each other, right? And all of them are circling this construction site. Mm-hmm. So I said before, the safes that were all burglarized weren't actually, the houses that were burglarized didn't have really anything missing but the stuff that was in the safe. Right. So what's even weirder is that the safes weren't actually like busted into. They were opened as if by like someone who knew the actual combination. So when the investigators got there, it's not like they were like blown up safes or anything or like hammered in or damaged whatsoever. They were just neatly opened and neatly closed back. Mm-hmm.
And these are real investigators, like professionals?
Yes. Like legit authorities, not
mystery yet.
Not Mystery Inc.
Okay.
They're going to come into the fold soon. We'll see.
Just wanted to make that distinction.
Yes, please do. Thank you. Appreciate that. So after like 3 or maybe 4 of these robberies took place, a lot of workers that were working at that construction site right in the middle of all of these buildings coincidentally just like walked off the job. It was late one night. And a bunch of them were seen just running out of the scene of the construction site. Oh. And right. And so when someone actually stopped to talk with them, they're like, hey, what's going on? Why are you guys all running? What's happening? Is the building freaking falling down? They're like, no, we just saw a ghost in there. Like a ghost on a construction site? Natural, right? So Turns out, though, that there actually is like some local folklore. I suppose this is also in Poolsville. I can't really tell if the kids are like traveling or if they're in their normal city, but
like spring break or something.
Yeah, right. I'm going to guess it was Poolsville, as you will see later on, but it never really says. So it turns out, though, that there is some local folklore that connects that construction site and that whole plot of land to some like really creepy kind of stuff that went down in the past. And you're probably wondering, so what in the absolute hell does any of that have to do with safes being robbed from condos?
But what in the actual hell does that have to do with safes being robbed in condos?
It comes together in classic Scooby-Doo fashion. So, all right, going way back in history, prior to the construction of that high-rise or any of those other condos being built around there, that plot of land was actually home to this old historic house. And to appease some of the local commies, so to speak, the construction company decided that rather than just all out, demolishing that house, they just kind of like picked it up somehow and moved it into the woods outside of the city, because houses built in like the 1800s were not like straight up stone and all of that, like built into the ground, and they could easily just be picked up and moved out of town. So turns out that the house was actually built in the year 1820 by this dude named Ebenezer Crabbe. Love it. Like, side note, they always are so good with the names, like Crabbe, like, oh, this guy must be crabby. He's probably a pain in the ass. I'm gonna love him already. All right.
So Ebenezer, that's a beautiful name. These names are just
chef's kiss. Beautiful. So Ebenezer, he built this house in 1820. And apparently he had some super nosy neighbors. And the neighbor was going around town telling people like, hey, did you hear Ebenezer Crabbe actually might be like a warlock or like involved in some sort of witchcraft in the dark arts? Because turns out that in the 50 years that Ebenezer had lived there, so I guess this is like end of the 1800s now, or like 1870 maybe, the neighbor noticed that dude never aged. Like, he stayed the same his whole life. So essentially, if this nosy neighbor was alive right now, he'd be calling like Pharrell and Cher like witches and warlocks, which...
welcome to Hollywood, baby.
Yeah, right. Welcome to Hollywood. Cher, you're going to have people freaking tiki torching at your house apparently soon because this neighbor's all up in your business.
Yeah.
So, spoiler alert, that's what happens next to Ebenezer Crabbe. He's at home one day. Yeah, right. He's at home one day and he just sees this angry mob tiki torching towards his house, running him out of town because apparently the rumor of one neighbor is enough to literally bring an entire community together and oust this man essentially from polite society.
And they're just jealous because he looks good.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, dude, you could learn a thing from him instead of like banishing him.
Yeah, get that skincare routine.
Right, and like maybe building houses is good for your health. Like, have him build houses for all y'all.
Yeah, for real.
So anyway, I guess around 1870, the town marched together and ran him out. He disappeared. But some people locally say that he is indeed still alive and that every 20 years he returns to that plot of land in Poolsville so that he can make himself younger again, whatever that means. I guess if he's got some like crazy spells or some sort of crazy, like, I don't know what do witches and warlocks do? What do they do to keep their appearance? I don't know, some boiling cauldron of locals that he drinks. And we're not going to go down any like QAnon sort of
This is not a Pizzagate.
No. Oh God, don't get me started on Pizzagate. All right. This is a tangent. We're going to go on it just for a second though. The restaurant that Pizzagate initially started from, Comet Pizzeria, right down the street from my law school actually. So I drove by it very often.
Oh my God.
People still occasionally go outside of there and just like hold up random signs like save our children and stuff. And meanwhile, like suburban, like Marylanders and DCers are just like trying to like get their freaking pizza and play arcade games. It's funny, but like driving by that place, I can tell you there ain't a bunch of kids stored in their basement.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and debunk that right now.
Yeah. And I don't think Hillary Clinton would be like frequenting that restaurant either. Nothing against her or the restaurant, just like saying as an objective truth.
Yeah, not on the radar.
Yeah. So anyway, back to our story. We'll fast forward. We're out of the old times of Ebenezer Crabbe, and we're back in the future, or I guess back in the present, or I guess technically it's our past because it's Scooby-Doo. Whatever.
Back to the more present past from the more past.
That thing you said there. So remember we had that massive worker walkout, which essentially they're all saying, "Oh my God, this construction site's haunted. This ghost of Ebenezer Crabbe is like running around chasing us and like laughing and cackling at us in the middle of the night." So essentially like these workers are just like asserting workplace grievances and like safety grievances, but whatever. Construction companies like, fine, leave, we'll hire new people then. But a lot of these crewmen are saying that when they saw the ghost, they're like, he's got this long, pale, like palish blue face. He had like really, really white hair that was honestly kind of long. And like, to be totally honest, like stunningly high cheekbones. So again, like if it is Ebenezer Crabbe, like, dude, get your freaking beauty routine from him because he's not aged in like 200 years and he has beautiful cheekbones. Anyway.
And hair apparently.
And
like,
hair, yeah.
Conditioner.
A mane, let me tell you, like a white mane. Like, to be totally fair, he kind of was like giving like Andrew Jackson or like Beethoven vibes with just like how thick and luscious that hair was and how like a beautiful prominent widow's peak too. It was just so, I was like, man, this guy's actually like, he's pretty glamorous. He has like this long red cloak and this suit with like the frills around the collar.
Can I briefly side tangent your comment about Beethoven and retell the story of once when Bird and I in high school were in a group project? I don't know.
Amadeus.
I don't know what class this was even for, but for some reason, whatever group project we had, we like had to watch the like, I don't know, 2000s-ish film Amadeus, which was like, wait, that's Mozart, not Beethoven. Either way,
still,
it's a long ass film. And this was like DVD days where like a film that was over like an hour and a half had to be split into
multiple
two DVDs.
Yeah.
So Bird and rest of group project folks are at Fisher's my house watching this film, and we were like, okay, great, like let's watch it. So, you know, it's the basement, we got popcorn, we're all friends hanging out anyways, lights are dimmed. I'm pretty sure it was me who pops in the first disc, and we're like, what the fuck is happening in this film? This film is so confusing. Oh my God, he's dead. And then we're like, that was so weird. Let's watch part 2. And like,
also that, why did he die so early in the movie? Yeah. Anyway,
we're like halfway through and he dies, and then like the credits roll. Like, what is happening? I guess let's watch the second half, and I put it in, and then it's like the opening scene with like the title card, and that's when I realized like I fucked up and I put part 2 in before part 1, and we watched it like out of order completely for this school project.
Because we didn't learn after the end credits came down that was the second. And we were like, that's an interesting place to put ending credits in the middle of the movie.
And like, is the second half going to be about like the great influence that like he had in the world? Like, no,
maybe it'll like travel to the future and like we'll look at all of the great things that have come after Mozart's work and everything. That had to have been for it was definitely a history class. I remember it was whenever we were studying salons, because the project was like have a salon, like as they did during the Renaissance. And at the time, you and I were both very obsessed with Family Guy. And there was a reference to that movie in Family Guy, and I can't remember what the reference was now, but we would always joke about it. So as soon as we found out we were in the same group, and as soon as we found out it was salon themed, we're like, we don't care what the fuck anyone else in our group says. We are watching Amadeus. This is like the only opportunity that we will have to do this, like, and it like reasonably, because like, I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to turn on Amadeus now, even though I probably understand it more than I did then.
Because we're watching the right order now.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that we like went back and redid it either. Like watch it in order. I think we're like, fuck it. Like this is it. That was too long to go back and rewatch. Like,
we just kept like steamrolling through. But yeah, you're absolutely correct that we were like, this is what we're doing, group.
Yeah, and they were like, okay, I guess that works.
Oh man, what a mistake that a school administration made whenever we were in a class together.
Pretty much. I don't think they understand what they were getting the rest of the class and that teacher into.
Yep. Okay. Anyways, the vibe, the look.
Yes,
it's here.
The vibe, the look, and I'm not gonna lie. When I was writing this, I was like, God, is it Beethoven or Mozart that he looks like? I can't remember. So I did have to look a picture of both of them up, and then I did immediately think back to that movie, Amadeus. But I did forget that you played them out of order.
That's all I remember from the movie.
And I was like, oh my God, that totally is what.
Yep.
Oh, we were on top of it. So, yes, this dude, he gives total Beethoven / like Jacksonian vibes, like this long cloak, beautiful thick mane. He scares the whole crew off of this construction site, right? And so now the site's like, well, we have to finish construction like the good capitalists we are, so we better hire a whole new crew that is either self-loathing and or ignorant and will not care when they realize we're putting them in a ridiculously life-threatening situation. So they start putting ads into the help wanted section of the local paper, and literally the ads say like, no experience necessary, apply anytime, like super safe for a construction gig, right? And like, mind you, this is like maybe within a decade of OSHA laws coming into effect. Okay, it's like the end of the 70s. I'm pretty sure OSHA was like 70, somewhere between 70 and like 73 or something.
They were still working on like implementation.
Exactly. So it's like, all right, this is like, we're skirting on some thin wires here. This could be a little damaging for some people. So anyway, usually I would not commend any sort of organization for hiring based on a lack of experience. But in this case, it actually worked out very, very well for the construction company, because guess who came across this ad in the Help Wanted paper? The teens from Mystery Inc. Now, Grace, you have already obviously described our fearless 5 members with Mystery Inc. I guess I will recommend people either rewinding it or going back to that episode to revisit who all of our players are, those 5 gang members. But nonetheless, we have Freddie, Shaggy, Daphne, and Vilma and Scooby enjoying pizza one evening at a local Sam's Pizzeria in downtown Coolsville. And Fred and Shaggy are kind of freaking out, like, oh man, we need some money. We haven't been getting any calls about mystery lately. And I'm like, yeah, let's look through the Help Wanted section or whatever. Just find a job, while Scooby's like running around the restaurant, probably messing with the pizza guy or whoever the chef in the kitchen. And so coincidentally, Vilma's got a newspaper out in front of her, and, you know, she's looking like, hey, here's an interesting story about actually some safe burglaries that are going on around town. Meanwhile, Shaggy's like, that's cool, but I said I need a job. I don't care about that. So what does the Help Wanted section say? So totally just ignoring Vilma's interest in this legitimate crime that's going on right outside of essentially this pizzeria. And instead flipping to the Help Wanted, and they notice, hey, this construction site is hiring, so let's go there. We don't need experience. So it's late at night, mind you. Like, they're out for a late night slice, and this was the night crew that got ran out of the construction site, or like chased out of there by the specter. So the crew was like, hey, it's nighttime, but they say apply anytime, right? So let's go apply right now. So they drive on over to this construction site.
So many concerns about this HR situation.
Yeah, I'm getting right into the HR as we speak.
Great.
So the site is run by this guy named Mr. Doherty, who clearly served as inspiration for the likeness of Indiana Jones when those movies came out. He had this like awesome fedora on and like a leather coat and like kind of baggy khaki-ish jean pants, whatever.
Amazing.
So he's overseeing the construction site. He runs the show. He tries to keep like the day-to-day stuff going. He's the one who hires people and fires people, all of that. And so just like that next night, after all those workers were scared off, that group of teens, Shaggy, Fred, Vilma, Daphne, and their dog, come into actually the employment office at that construction site, right? So Doherty, he's like kind of looking at Shaggy and Fred like, okay, that works, but it is like the late 70s. So he's like, I don't know why the fuck Vilma and Daphne are here, but okay. So he pretty much just like introduces himself like, hi, I'm Doherty. And they're like, hi, I'm Shaggy, I'm Fred, whatever. And then he just hires them. He's like, okay, come on, are you guys cool with the night shift? And they're like, yeah, sure, I guess. And he's like, you mean like this night shift, like now? So then they start working pretty much on the spot right then and there. But again, as I said, he's like clearly has no interest in hiring Vilma and Daphne in the year 1979 or whatever for a construction site. So seeing that only Fred and Shaggy are offered jobs, they decide that they will go off and do something else. But before Daphne and Vilma leave, Mr. Doherty is like, hey, I got to warn you guys, I've been having some trouble keeping workers on lately because we've got this darn ghost that's just haunting this construction site, right? Oh my God. So that obviously piques at least Daphne's interest. She's like, a ghost? Like a specter? What? And Doherty kind of looks at her like, why are you still here, by the way? But
I said I didn't need a secretary, lady.
I'm just hiring workers, okay? Can you hold a hammer? Can you?
I didn't think so.
I don't think women knew how to hold hammers until 1990, okay? I think that's when they officially started teaching that in schools. So anyway, Daphne and Vilma, they're more interested at this point in this whole tale of the specter than Fred and Shaggy are. So they ask him, like, what do you mean a ghost has been here? And naturally, Shaggy instantly was like, oh, shoot, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. But Doherty goes on and explains. He's like, well, yeah, I mean, there used to be a house on this plot of land. And so people think that something happened and it's got to do with why this ghost is running around here. And so while Fred and Shaggy are assigned to their first duties because they reluctantly are like, okay, fine, we'll still take the job. Fred actually took it more so because he wanted to then solve the mystery, and Shaggy took it just because Fred told him to. So they end up getting assigned to their first job duties, but before they head off to go meet the other remaining construction site workers, Fred turns to Vilma and Daphne, and he's like, hey, you two, go down to the newspaper library archives and see if you can find anything you can about that old house that was on this plot of land. Because apparently the public can just go down to your local newspaper library archive and just wander around, even in the middle of the night when there's probably no one there. So Daphne and Velma were like, oh yeah, good idea. You guys do the man's work and we'll go do the ladies' work and go rifle through papers. So, and break team. So boom, they break. Daphne and Velma go one way, Fred and Shaggy the other. So Fred and Shaggy are taken around the construction site by Mr. Doherty. And he's introducing them to all the two remaining workers there. One of them is named Mr. Jim Rivets. Rivets, as in like the tool or like the part. Exactly. Gotta love these puns. And so Mr. Rivets, he's like this typical blue collar union looking guy, right? He's described as one of the two men brave enough rather, to stick around even after these hauntings started. So he's got this like kind of big belly, like stockier upper body, like a push-ups guy and not a squats guy. He's got like dark hair, this big super thick mustache, all this just like your classic like almost Midwestern union looking construction worker guy. And so he's showing the boys, Shaggy and Fred, and also Scooby is still there for some reason because dogs are allowed to put on hard hats and just peruse around construction. Well, naturally. So he's touring all of them around the site and telling them, hey, Fred, you're going to be on the 19th floor of construction, and Shaggy, you're going to be on the top floor. So he is putting these teenage boys with no experience in construction on like the two top floors
alone
of this building alone. Yes, totally safe, right? And again, this is like less than a decade post OSHA. So we've got some issues here that probably need to be hammered out by the federal government, but pretty sure OSHA was amended later on down the road, probably because people from Poolsville were complaining about its enforcement. So
or lack thereof, yes.
Yeah, right. So they drop Fred off on the 19th floor, and they take Shaggy up to the top floor. And Shaggy is then introduced to a man named Red Sparks. All right. And can you guess what color the man's hair is?
Blonde?
Yes, actually. No, it's red. It's red. And he's got this like bright red hair peeking out underneath his construction cap. And he's also got like very strikingly high cheekbones. Again, what is the deal with beautifully high cheekbones in Coolsville?
Fierce.
I don't know. So Red Sparks, he's the foreman for the top floor. And he essentially talks Shaggy through, you know, how to use all these power tools for about 5 minutes maybe. And then he leaves. He's pissed. So Shaggy is stuck with like this industrial grade impact wrench that's probably like bigger than his head. And he's just like on the top floor, like bolting shit into these girders. Again, totally safe. But
I'm so scared. This building will fall down because of that.
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, we should actually look to see if there were any like later stories about the building collapsing and people.
We'll get into it.
Oh, that would be super traumatic. But anyway, so they're all starting to kind of get the hang of the work that they're doing, right? Fred's down there hammering away because, as we know, Fred is just like total alpha male. He doesn't need no training on tools, so he's doing totally fine by himself. Shaggy, though, him and Scooby, they actually start to like experience some pretty creepy shit going down. So they don't know whether or not to believe the Spectre story. Obviously, Shaggy is afraid of any mention of ghosts, but at that point, he's like, well, I haven't seen it yet, and I'm getting paid, so whatever, hammering away. Then out of nowhere, the Spectre just like appears in front of them. I mean, it's actually kind of funny how he does it. I don't know if you want me to explain.
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
All right. So Shaggy is working, and he's asking Scooby to refill a bucket of rivets. And yes, they use the term rivets just after introducing Jim Rivets. They like really want to make you know how punny they are. And so Scooby's like doing this pulley thing. He's pulling down this new bucket of fresh rivets to do whatever construction work they're doing. And the Spectre is standing in the bucket that Scooby pulls down.
Oh, Scooby must be strong.
He's super strong. And the Spectre must have very tiny feet. Or he's just like on his tiptoes in this bucket. And he's like posing too.
Ooh,
all right, the Spectre is like, he knew. He's like, oh, I'm going to scare the living hell out of these kids. I cannot wait. So
he's practicing
like,
in the mirror, his poses.
Exactly. He knows. He already knows. Like, this is the one I'm going to use when I scare these teenagers that come to work today.
This is my bucket look.
Oh my God. I have to show you a picture of it. So funny. He's got like arms up. It's like when you're watching gymnasts after they stick the landing on a floor routine. Yes, exactly.
Amazing.
Anyway, so he shows up to them. He appears to them. They obviously both freak out, and classic Scooby-Doo chase ensues around the building. The building that's under construction, mind you.
Oh, I forgot. Not safe.
Super hazardous. Okay. They're literally running on like beams and steel girders to avoid this guy, jumping over like wheelbarrows and whatnot, and like tossing bags of cement over the edges to so totally, totally normal. Yeah, or just like wherever to stay safe. Like, they don't care about the consequences of their actions. They just don't want to get killed by the freaking ghost. Yeah, I guess. So anyway, the chase ends when they get down and finally catch back up with Fred. So I guess somehow they get down to the 19th floor from being on the top floor. And when Fred's like, what are you guys doing? We're trying to work. Like, you guys are going to get us fired. Shaggy is like, we're being chased by the Spectre. Can you not see it? And Fred looks and he's like, dude, there's nothing there. But I 100% agree with you because I want to solve a mystery and not work on this construction. So let's look into it.
Fred like finally tosses the hammer behind him.
Lands on freaking Mr. Doherty.
Poor Mr. Sparks just knocked out.
Anyway, so they reconvene down in the employment office where they first met up with Mr. Doherty when they first got the jobs. And when they get there, the ladies, for some reason, return at the exact same time. So I guess they're like, hey, let's take a break. And mind you, again, this is like before cell phones, as we always say. So it's not like they called them like, hey, we found something, come back. It's almost like just, hey, stroke of faith, things happen. They got back right when the boys were done being haunted. They all reconvened. Normal. And so they tell Velma and Daphne tell the boys and Mr. Doherty everything that they learned while they were down rifling through old library archive or newspaper library archives and files. And it was pretty much all that old history that we talked about at the beginning, that there was this dude named Ebenezer Crabbe who lived there, super old house, got tiki torched out of town, might have been involved with the dark arts a little bit. They learn all those little intricacies. And so then Doherty is like, well, again, why are you guys back here? I don't, these men should be working.
Did you bring me a scotch?
Yeah,
why are you ladies here?
But then once he realizes that they're actually like invested in why this site is being haunted, he's like, okay, I guess I'll let them like stick around, even though I have no other use for these two teenage ladies who keep showing up and distracting my male workers. And so Velma and Daphne, they start to tell him like, hey, maybe we should like investigate the house while Shaggy and Fred are still working here. Maybe like it seems to be part of like the reason why this is all haunted, because you moved everything. So they make that suggestion, and Fred is like, that's a good idea, Velma, really good idea. You and Shaggy go, actually, and me and Daphne are going to stay here.
Dory's probably like, I was trying to get rid of the ladies.
Yeah, just so you know, like, I don't want Daphne working here, but okay, fine.
Sure, let her in my construction site.
And also, like, yeah, pretty sure that they're all supposed to still be on the clock. So I guess just like right in front of Doherty, they're like, yeah, Shaggy's totally just going to ditch right now. He'll be back when he wants. I hope this is the type of employee that you like having on your construction site, because I know you're already behind schedule with people walking off on you, but you really have no other choice. So
yeah, here's another one walking off on you right now.
Yeah, pretty much. So the three of them, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby, they head on over to Crabbe's old house, and they never really like explain how the construction crew moved it there, but it somehow ended up like in the middle of the woods, a little far away from downtown. Like we can assume that they had to drive at least like 15 or 20 minutes to get there. So it's not like they moved it just like next door. Like they had to legitimately haul this thing for a while. And so they get to the house, they knock on the door, and this is where
they knock.
Yeah, they knock. How polite of them, right? Rather than just breaking in, they walk up, start to knock, and then the door is like slowly creeping open. And there's a super old lady there, actually. And they're all kind of surprised. Like, I think they just kind of like knocked to make sure no one was there, because they probably did not think anyone was there, since the person who built the house died like 200 years ago, or
so we think.
Was said to die 200 years ago. And so this super old, like pale lady opens the door. She's got, again, a very thick mane, like all white hair, beautiful hair. So I don't know what conditioner these people are using, but it's good. Again, a prominent widow's peak, long chin, thin face. She's like talking with her gams, doesn't have any teeth, like bony hands, all that, and like this like really long dark cloak around her shoulders. So she like honestly actually just looks like a female version of Ebenezer Crabbe, so to speak. And lo and behold, she introduces herself as Nettie Crabbe, Ebenezer's great-great-great-granddaughter.
Ooh.
And so even though she looks like very creepy and like scary, and honestly like she herself is a ghost, she's actually like super friendly and like warmly welcomes the three in, like, hey, come on in, take a look around, what can I help you with?
And they're in the middle of the night, come on in, strange children.
Strangers who may kill me. I don't know who you are, who rolled up here in some weirdly colored van.
Thanks for bringing your dog into my house too.
Yeah, I hope his paws aren't muddy. I just freaking cleaned. So anyway, these three, or at least the two who can talk, are like, hey, we're really interested in all this history of Ebenezer Crabbe, and we've been sent here to kind of do some research. Do you mind if we look around? And she's like, oh, for sure, go ahead. Rifle through my house and my old family heirlooms and possessions. Like, have at it.
Good kids. Good.
But before she sends them off, she is certain to warn these teens that, just so you know, the ghost of Ebenezer Crabbe, he comes back every 20 years, and he can come back any minute now, kind of like implying, hey, while you're here, this dude may show up.
Interesting.
So she warns them of that, and then kind of sends them to rifle through her home and, you know, her old personal belongings. They make their way up to Ebenezer's old room, and they remember her mentioning, too, that Ebenezer was involved in black magic. So they're like, oh, God, I hope that his room's not, like, cursed or something, or that we're not going to get, like, haunted just from stepping in his room. And so they go in there and they do actually find a book of spells to confirm that this guy did at least have some interest in magic, whether it was like birthday party level type of stuff or just like legitimate dark arts, like trying to take over the world and find the key to immortality type of stuff. Not much to, be explained there, but nonetheless, he for sure was like practicing spells and dark magic at some point in his life. But it's not this like book of spells that they find that they're intrigued by. It's actually like this old dusty trunk that Vilma's like, hey, get over here and help me open this. There might be some cool stuff in here, even though there's clearly like cool stuff everywhere around the room in the open to prove that this guy was like up to some pretty creepy things.
Also, has no one gone into this room in multiple generations and like cleaned it out?
I guess not. There were cobwebs everywhere. Like even Nettie herself, I guess she just maybe like peeks in there to make sure it's not on fire and then just like dips. I don't know.
That's the door.
Yeah, no one, even when they moved it through the construction process or whatever, like picking it up and moving it from that original plot of land, nothing moved, nothing shook, nothing was taken out, anything. They
still
just
settled
perfectly. Yeah. So they're in the bedroom. They open up this trunk that Vilma is like very interested in. And out the trunk, they pull this old receipt, which normally it's like, why would that be like a clue? Why would that be anything that interests you? But they realized that the receipt was dated for, I think, only like a month or so ago or a few weeks ago. And they're like, whoa, why would this like 200-year-old ghost need anything? Like, why would he buy anything within a month ago? And so it turns out that the receipt was for an old telescopic lens of some sort. So like, I guess what you would put in a telescope. And so right as they find that, they're trying to look for more clues to like make sense of why this receipt would be in this guy's house in the first place. But then like Nettie Crabbe bursts in the room like, hey guys, just warning you, Ebenezer may be here soon, like reminding them, like, hey, yeah, I know, right, Nettie, back up, okay?
Go back to bed.
But it's actually really nice because when she reminds them of that, she's also like, could I offer you tea while we wait for it? So it's like, oh, Nettie, you're so nice, but also freaking creepy.
Yeah,
so Shaggy's like,
for him?
absolutely, right. I'm not waiting for him, especially not over tea. He's going to freaking kill us probably. He's a ghost. And so Shaggy is like, no, thank you. We are going to go. We have seen enough creepy stuff, and we do not want your creepy tea and to wait for your creepy great-great-great-grandfather or whatever to somehow re-arrive here. And so the three of them, they head back to the construction site. Nettie is like, okay, bye. It was nice meeting you. And they head back to the construction site, and they tell Fred and Daphne and Mr. Doherty what all they found over there, which, again, was just a receipt. And again, okay, what time is it? Like, what hour of day? They've been working apparently for like an hour at the construction site. They drove over to Nettie's house. They had to be there for at least a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're driving back.
Well, plus the drive times, like.
Yeah, exactly. Like all this driving. Where are your parents? Who's paying for gas? It has to be. And the construction site is still open because they go back and Doherty is just down there hanging out with Fred and Daphne still, who, by the way, appear to have accomplished absolutely nothing. It's like, yeah, Daphne's going to stay here with me so that we can, investigate the construction site. Like, well, they have absolutely nothing to show for it when Shaggy and Vilma and Scooby back. So, pretty much, right? So, I think we know what they were doing. So Doherty, when he's listening to the three of them tell this story of what they just found at the old Crabbe house, he's like, wait a minute, back up. You said you talked to Nettie Crabbe? And Velma's like, yeah, dude, why are you shocked? Like, she was really friendly. And Doherty is like, well, she's been dead for 50 years.
Excuse me?
Yeah. So that's impossible. Vilma, she's like totally not shaken by this revelation whatsoever. Like, oh, hey, I might have just been in the house of a ghost, talking to a ghost.
Looking for a ghost.
Exactly. So she's like, interesting. Well, anyway, here's this receipt that we found, though, in Ebenezer's room. So they show this receipt to the gang. And I guess Fred, he like had a moment of inferiority because he realized that they didn't actually accomplish anything at the construction site. Because he just like jumps in the middle of Velma's sentence trying to explain what the receipt was for. Like, hey, look, it's for an old telescopic lens. And like,
you can read. We get it, Fred.
We get it. Thanks. I was getting there, Freddie. Okay. And so he was like, look, it was made to Ebenezer. The receipt was made to Ebenezer just a couple months ago. And so their next idea is, ding, let's go to this store where he bought the lens. So again, apparently they have late night hours, and it's the favorite spot for teenage locals in Coolsville, the Optical Lens Company Incorporated. And cool. when they they get there, they pull up. I think they knock on the door because maybe like normal people, they're wondering if the place is open at 2 or 3 in the morning. But lo and behold, the doors burst open by actually this kind of like nerdy but friendly looking guy called Mr. Speck.
Oh my God.
Mr. Speck. Yes, it continues.
Never ends.
And he turns out to be the owner of Optical Lens Company Incorporated. And he also seems to be extremely excited about like teenagers knocking on his door late at night because they like want to learn about lenses. So he's like, oh my God, yes, come in.
Where are the parents?
Again, I don't think he cares, which is concerning in and of itself, but whatever.
Investigate him too separately. Go on.
So this guy, he's got dark brown hair and he's like sporting the middle part. It's like the fancy, like curled up hair in the front. Got these like big spectacles, naturally being named Mr. Speck and owning a spectacle lens company. He's got like this nice three-piece suit on and a bow tie. It's like they obviously want this guy to be, to come off as extremely innocent, intelligent, and also just like very concerned about the interests of these teenagers. Like, why are they interested in lenses? I'm so happy to expose them to this whole new world of lenses. And so Fred just kind of like walks up, like, explain this receipt. Mr. Speck is like, oh, okay, sure. Yeah, it was for an electronic spotto-telescopic lens. I'm not an expert on lenses. I'm not sure if that is at all legit.
Is that real?
If that's real. But nonetheless, that is the type of lens that Ebenezer Crabbe was buying a couple months ago from this store. And so he grabs another one, Speck. He goes throughout the store and he grabs another lens like that one that Ebenezer bought a couple months prior. I guess they had another one in stock. And he shows it to the kids so that they can see what kind of lens is on that receipt. He does not question why the kids have this receipt, why they're interested in this receipt, but he's happy to help them, again, explore their newfound interest in lenses.
He just wants to be included.
He does. And isn't that what we all want? Like, aren't we all Mr. Speck in our own way?
Again, philosophical questions need to be answered here.
Bonus content. We'll analyze that. How much do you relate to Mr. Speck in this moment? How old were you when you realized you two are Mr. Speck?
This right now. I realized I was 29 years old.
So Speck shows them this lens. And he tells Fred, like, here, use it to, like, look outside. And Fred uses it. He's looking through it. He's like, oh, my gosh, whoa, it, like, essentially turned night into day. Again, confirming that it's late at night and they're at this lens store. But also confirming that, for some reason, Ebenezer Crabbe, or someone who was trying to come off as Ebenezer Crabbe, wanted some lens that would make darkness light, essentially.
Like night vision type of thing?
Yeah, I guess. And so they don't really explain the science behind it, but Speck is just like, yeah, it's a very like special kind of lens. It just like changes the way you see things. Like the reflections and everything make it seem a lot brighter than it actually is when you're using it. And so Fred is like, okay, well, can I take this lens? Like, can we have this? Because we're like investigating this mystery of the specter. And so he like makes no mention that he wants to buy the lens. He makes no mention that he wants to even like loan it, that he'll even put money down. He's like, can we have this?
There's no like collateral put down.
Yeah, well, okay, so here's the collateral, right? Speck is like, sure, you can have it. Just sign this receipt. Sign this piece of paper showing me that you have it, and you can take this super unique lens that I have,
super expensive,
and solve your mystery, right? Yeah, it's super expensive, whatever. So they leave the shop with this awesome lens now. I'm assuming they signed the receipt. And now I'm not sure if all 4 or 5, including Scooby, had to sign, or if just Fred had to sign. Knowing them, it probably was just Fred. She's like, I'm in charge. I'll sign this.
I'm sure it's a combination. Was it like just Fred? And then like, did Daphne, as everyone else, like walked out, like hands the blank check over and is just like, I know. Here you go.
The unseen scenes of Scooby-Doo. It's like every time the gang does anything, like Daphne we don't see it, but Daphne like slides a blank check under, like just write in for the damage. We already know we're going to mess something up here.
You know who my father is. Yes.
Exactly.
That's the Blake family.
You see the name on that, Blake Incorporated. We'll pay for it. Just write your number. Write your number.
No questions asked.
So anyway, they're leaving the shop, and I'm pretty sure that like as they're leaving, Spec is like shedding a small tear, like, oh my gosh, I've just like released these kids back into the world with this newfound passion for like ophthalmological sciences. Like they're all going to become optometrists or like study lenses now. He's probably so proud of himself when really like these kids are just like on a random investigatory like gig. Like,
they're my friends.
We'll see. But anyway, so he's an adorable character, and the kids obviously lean on him a lot in their solving the mystery of the specter, which again, all will circle together, and we will see how this combines directly to the safe robberies.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I know, right? I was like, don't want you to forget what the initial crime was. But actually, I should add that it's kind of by accident that the kids solved that safe robbery thing, because they are really focused on the specter here, because that's the thing that drove all the people off of the construction site. So we will get to the connection. Yeah, I know, right?
Original crime is secondary.
Always. And so they get back they're driving back to the construction site, because now they have this lens, and I guess every single time that they find something new, they have to go back and report it to Doherty. But on their way back to the construction site, the specter pops up. Like, turns out he was like haunting their van, and he was hanging on top of their van, so he just like sticks his face in the windshield as they're driving. And all of the kids, rather than just like trying to drive and shake him off, they just like stop the car, slam on the brakes, and they all scatter. So the specter is running around town chasing these kids, trying to figure out, because I guess he's on to them. He knows that they're around, like looking for things, because he's been sneaking around the construction site, kind of listening in on their conversations with Doherty, like, oh my gosh, I think these kids might like figure me out soon. So he's haunting them, he's chasing them around the city. Shaggy is in possession of the lens. Again, as you noted, he is an all-star gymnast. I think that's like something. So I don't know if they expressly said it in that one episode because I feel like that's just kind of a theme. He's always the one to like do the traps and always the one running away, because he's like the most athletic of them, even though he's super, super scared of everything. So I guess they hand off the lens to Shaggy because like he can run the fastest or like maneuver around the easiest. But the specter still chases him and scares it out of his hands, and steals the lens. So yes, it's expensive, unique lens. So now we have another mystery to solve.
They had it for 5 minutes, and they got it stolen.
It's like, Spec, how did you not see this coming? How did you not see this coming? We told you, put some money down. Get some money from these kids. Daphne Blake is rich. Again, we assume she put a blank check down. I don't know. But instead of being freaked out about this probably like super expensive lens that was just stolen from their clutches, they instead are like more focused on eating. So they go back to that pizzeria, and they're like, okay, let's start to piece pieces of this puzzle together. We know we've got a ghost. We know we've got the ghost of Ebenezer Crabbe, or like hauntings of Ebenezer Crabbe. We know we found a receipt for an optical lens, and we know that optical lens makes things go from dark to light. So over pizza, mind you. So as they're talking and going through all this information, all these clues, enjoying their fourth meal, because it's got to be like 5 a.m. at this point.
Really, this is breakfast pizza?
I guess. I think I did some like eggs and bacon on there. I don't know. But they're going, I guess there's an early morning edition of the newspaper because they're also going through the newspaper as they're talking over these clues. And Velma, who is just sick of being ignored, she's done with it. She's like, you know what? It's my time to shine. There was another safe burglary. Everyone, listen to me.
Pay attention.
Pay attention. Something weird is happening. All these safes are being burglarized from these buildings nearby. And we don't know why or how, but I feel like somehow it has to do something with the specter and with this lens that we found. And so Daphne is like, oh, you know, you're right. Now that you mention it, all these buildings are surrounding the construction site. Maybe we should listen to you. And so the gang decides to go back to the construction site. Not sure why they didn't do that before. And again, not sure why they like doing so much driving and traveling in the middle of the night.
Again, gas, question mark.
Yeah. Hey, back then it was a whole different day and age. I don't know.
It was the oil boom, baby.
Right, exactly. OPEC was setting the numbers a lot differently back then. So through a series of twists and turns and hilarious Scooby-Doo chases, as they always are, they get chased by the specter around the construction site. And somehow they end up at the top floor and they end up on this, not at all. They end up on this girder that's like swinging by a crane. And somehow it like the girder breaks into a penthouse window from one of the surrounding buildings and they all end up in there and the specter chases them in there.
Into like someone's home?
Yeah, well, yes,
okay.
into a home, into a penthouse, yes.
Okay.
And so when they get into the penthouse, they're super surprised when they look up and see Nettie Crabbe is in this penthouse. And Nettie's super surprised to see like, whoa.
Old ghost lady?
Old ghost lady. Old friendly ghost lady offering tea while she waited for her great-great-great-grandfather to return to his old home. She's chilling in a penthouse now. She's moved up in the world in the past like 2 or 3 hours.
Damn.
And so she's like super surprised to see them in the penthouse too. And she's acting all like confused, like, oh my, what are you doing here? What's happening? And the specter pops up right behind the kids. And so through a bunch of more, random Scooby-Doo antics of trapping folks, like somehow a bucket of wet cement falls into the penthouse off of the girder. And it traps Nettie and the ghost of Ebenezer Crabbe's feet to the penthouse floor and
both
probably ruined both of them. And the penthouse carpet is ruined.
The window's already ruined. Like
windows messed
HOA.
Up. Yeah. Sorry, you guys. You're gonna have to find a way to pay this. I don't know what your insurance plan.
Daphne's
is
sitting there.
Yeah, writing the check. Like, okay, new carpet, new windows. She's like assessing the whole penthouse. Like, okay, well, let's do this color on this wall. When we redo it.
Now, while we're redoing it, let's give this a little glow up. It's Nettie of bad taste.
I wish it was Nettie's. Actually, I guess it's, well, we're about to find out.
We're going to get into it.
We're going to get into it. So the Spectre and Nettie are now trapped. And it's at this moment that you realize, oh, wow, Nettie actually, like Dorothy was right. That's just a ghost of Nettie. She's actually not on our side.
Oh,
like,
shit.
Even though she was creepy, she was still nice and offering tea. So what's going on? And in classic fashion, Vilma and Fred seem to already be like 2 steps ahead of everyone else. Like, oh, we know what's going to happen when we take these masks off. So again, before we go through who exactly is underneath the masks, we'll recap all the people that we've met this evening or these evenings that Mystery Inc. has been working construction and trying to resolve a haunting on that construction site. And also kind of inadvertently tripping over into a safe burglary investigation at the same time. So we had Mr. Jim Rivets, the surly, good old union-looking construction man who initially gave the folks a tour around the construction site. We had Mr. Red Sparks, who was the foreman on the top floor. He was who Shaggy reported to, obviously trained him for a few minutes and then kind of disappeared. We had Mr. Speck, the lovable, nerdy lens guy who owned Optical Lens Co. Incorporated. And then, of course, we have Mr. Doherty, the guy who oversees the entire construction site. So I don't know if I want to ask you if you know who was underneath these two masks.
Wait, I want to guess.
Yeah, go ahead and guess. So yes, and of course it's two people. So you have the ghost of Ebenezer Crabbe and you have the ghost of Nettie Crabbe.
Great. I think it was Sparks and Rivets.
Ding, ding, ding.
It was both of them?
Ding, ding. It was both of them. It was both of them. All right. So let me see here. I'm pretty sure. So Rivets was underneath Ebenezer's costume, and Sparks was I got that backwards. Sparks was underneath Ebenezer's costume. Rivets was under Nettie Crabbe's costume.
Okay.
Obviously, Sparks, the high cheekbones. You cannot hide behind cheekbones that wonderful. Even Tyra Banks would know. Like,
Only
that's
so much makeup.
That is Red Sparks. Exactly. That is Red Sparks underneath that costume.
Wow. Don't deny who you are, Sparky. You're beautiful.
We see them cheekbones. You work them. And Mr. Rivets, obviously, with that like stocky exterior, stocky upper body, he had that cloak covering him. Man, you would have never known that there was a big old Union guy underneath there.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, how did he look like a creepy old lady? Also, how did he get to that house in the construction? I'm sure you're into it.
Unfortunately, I won't. They never actually say. Cool. They never say. I guess we see them quickly train the teens and then kind of run away. So I guess when Shaggy and Scooby were haunted on the top floor, that was, Mr. Sparks. He trained them for like 5 minutes and then he just kind of dipped. Like you don't see where he went. So he clearly ran somewhere, changed in the costume, and started like joking around. And there was quite a bit of time between then and when Vilma and Shaggy got to the old Crabbe house.
Oh, that's right.
So maybe like
they didn't go right away. They went
to
the library and then there.
Yeah, maybe Rivets like left right after showing them around. He's like, oh man, I better go get this house ready because these kids might be coming over. I gotta make it look haunted and spooky.
So weird.
But anyway, so how the hell does this connect to safe burglaries?
Yeah.
All right. You keep coming back like, oh, yeah. What does that have to do with anything?
Original crime.
In this episode, the story is definitely more focused on the haunting of the buildings than it is the actual crime. But I guess there is like a lot of trespassing going on with the haunting of the buildings and everything, and like assault and all sorts of other, a lot of other stuff is happening. But for the safe burglaries, the kids find out that Red Sparks and Jim Rivets have a long history actually of burglarizing buildings, breaking in and, robbing safes, but only safes. And they realize that they actually, Rivets and Sparks, own that penthouse or at least somehow have access to that penthouse. And what they do is they use this special telescopic lens to look out of their penthouse window, look around at the other high-rises that are around them, look into windows. So getting very rear windowy here. Very Alfred Hitchcock here. Yeah. And what they do is they use the lens to zoom in on people opening their safes. They claim that's all. They claim that's it. Exactly. And so that's how they're able to get the code. And then they break into the buildings. They don't really go in depth on how they're able to sneak into so many buildings, but listen, if they have fake construction worker uniforms, I'm sure they can get like fake like butler outfits or something. And they're getting into these buildings somehow, breaking into these condos. They already have the combinations for the safe from using that optical lens. They break in, makes it look like no harm, no foul, or makes it look like the person who owned the safe did it themselves and just got like super coked up or drunk and forgot that they took all their money out, whatever. And so they use this amazing vantage point from their penthouse to figure out what's safe to burglarize. But as it turns out, if this new high-rise that's under construction, if the construction finishes, it'll obstruct their view. Exactly. So rather than let that high-rise finish being constructed, they decide, hey, let's like dress up as ghosts and let's capitalize on this old history, this folklore of Ebenezer Crabbe, which honestly kind of the perfect storm for them because it's like they knew that history existed. They knew that there would be some like some superstitions arising from them moving the house and like, oh God, you're unleashing all sorts of haunted stuff onto this area. So they totally took advantage of that and were like, hey, we can like scare people away from the construction site by making them think that we're haunting the site because they moved the house. And now that it'll never finish getting built, we'll put them behind schedule. And meanwhile, we can continue to look into all these other condos, steal their codes, rob their safes.
Done.
Boom. Easy career, right? No,
smart.
Because Mystery Inc., though, those darn kids, they would have gotten away with it if it weren't for them. So this is the point that the teenagers decide to call the police action. And in fact, it's not even them. It's Doherty. He's like, yeah, call the cops. Get them in here.
Yeah,
something is clearly wrong.
Was he just like, there seemed to be a loud crash, and I saw like I don't know, giant like rebar fly from my building into that building. Maybe I should go up there and check it out. Like, was he just in the office during all of this?
You know, they never really say where he is. It's like he's at the kid's command at this point. Like he could have been at home, and they're like, Doherty, we got something to show you. You better get down here. And so then he runs down like, all right, I'm on my way.
I bet Daphne's dad owns the building.
Dude, you're probably right. That actually, and that's probably why Fred and Shaggy got the job too. Because I mean, no experience necessary. I get it, but like you got to have a little something. Like you have to know how to hold a hammer.
Yeah.
Like,
and then he didn't give Daphne and Velma the job because he was like, if Mr. Blake finds out that I put his daughter to work, hell to pay.
Oh my God, I'll get fired.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Anyways.
So the cops finally get there and they're like, everything checks out so far, I guess. Like rivets and sparks, they do kind of seem like safe burglars now that you mention it. But and they are also in costume, so we at least know that they're pretending to haunt the area. So
that's not a crime.
No, I mean there may be some weird things in there, but you know, it's not illegal to wear a costume, that's for sure. Maybe to wear the costume and then chase people around a construction site, maybe, but just put on a costume. No, sure. So the cop's like, we're gonna need a little something else. And while Scooby's like randomly sniffing around, you know, looking around the penthouse, he somehow knocks over a flower plant. And out of the flower plant that is sitting right next to all of them as the police are trying to figure out like the nail in the coffin for these crimes, a bunch of waddles of cash just fall out of this flower pot that Scooby knocks over. And they're like, oh, boom, that's it. That's the money that was stolen from the safes. We found it. No way it could be any other money.
We don't have to trace the serial numbers. We just know.
Not at all. We just know. Wow. This is it. It makes total sense that these cat burglars would just put all the money and possessions that they stole right here in the very penthouse that they would return to. This is it. They did it, y'all. That's the plot. And so just like that, you would never guess these kids, they're looking for random jobs just because they aren't getting any mysteries lately, you know, no requests for business. And they end up kind of tripping over their whatever body part you want to imagine them tripping over and resolve not only a fake haunting of a major construction site, but also like a string of cat burglaries and safe burglaries that are probably happening to like some of the richest people in Coolsville. So honestly, give them their stars.
I have a quick question.
Please.
Do they ever actually get hired to solve the crimes? It sounds like they just do it.
That's a good point. I feel like they kind of just like walk into somewhere and like assume the position. Like, okay, like I don't know who you are, but sure,
is it just
kids.
Like afterwards, like they go back and like negotiate and be like, cops, we did this for you. Pay up. Like Doherty, you owe us. We saved. Like, do they just blackmail like the victims for money for solving it?
I guess that would be a good way to get paid. Kind of. I mean, again, we're talking about necessary evils. How bad is blackmail when the thing you're blackmailing someone for is to resolve yet another crime?
Right.
Is it really a crime in that sense then? I don't know.
Maybe it's like the police department pays them up because they don't want to look bad, that like they never solve the crimes, but like these kids do. So the cops are like, thanks. Yeah.
And I mean, like kind of future incarnations of Scooby-Doo have gone into that. Like there was the more recent, what's it called? I think it's just called Mystery Incorporated. It's like, it's one of the newest ones that was on Cartoon Network. Like the sheriff in the town like hates them because they're always getting in the way. But at the same time, he like loves the fact that the town is haunted because it brings like tourism there. Mm-hmm. So they're like, no, like let it be haunted. And also you're making us look bad by like just taking on these crimes and we're not the ones resolving them. But yeah, for the old episodes, pretty sure they just like walk in a room and they're like, oh, hey, we'll do this. And the people that they're solving the mystery for are like, okay, thanks. Who are you again?
Yeah, like, are you an undercover cop? You guys are just in street clothes. Also, was Fred walking around the like construction site with like hard hat and his like ascot on?
He did have his ascot on.
I've been thinking about that this whole time.
Yes, he did. Cool. So yeah, they all had hard hats on. Fred obviously had his ascot on because fashion is the number one part of any construction gig, obviously.
Yes.
I do not believe they had any vests on. So good thing the hard hats were very bright yellow, so you could at least see those. Huh. Scooby was there. He was helping out. He was on the top floor with Shaggy. Huh. So they were all decked out besides Vilma and Daphne, who obviously women were not allowed on construction sites in the year 1978 or 79. No. So they were actually trailblazers when you look at it from that perspective. They may have been the first women allowed on
a construction site. I don't know if they were allowed even, but they were there.
They were there though. They were there. Yeah.
Wow, what a true journey. I feel like that episode too, there's further people to look into, such as Doherty's like OSHA practices and like child labor and like
and also Spec, like I get that he's the owner of that place, but if there are any other managers of that company, you know, like they might take a loss at that lens being, you know, damaged or something. So it's like,
did they get that back? What? Yeah,
I'm gonna guess they did because they were able to get it back from Ebenezer and Nettie, or I should say Sparks and Rivets. You know, when they captured them. That they never show the return to Spec, but I think that, you know, they like him enough where they weren't going to screw him over. Yeah. Or blank check from Daphne. Here you go. Buy yourself 1,000 lenses.
Yeah, get yourself something nice and don't speak of this. Yeah.
Ever again.
Or her dad going back through and like after every mystery solved, he has to go back through one by one and right all of the wrongs.
Exactly, like trace their steps. Like, oh my God, you guys, what are you doing?
It's just like blank check city, essentially.
Yes. And Blake Incorporated funding all of their mistakes. All of their mistakes. Yeah, so
great work.
Thank you. It's same for you.
Thank you.
Same for you. But it's interesting to see kind of the difference in the way that the writing teams approach, like Where Are You versus the Scooby-Doo Show.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that as we continue on this podcast and the video cast, we'll see like different incarnations. Like there's the 13 Ghosts, Scooby-Doo, there's Scooby and Scrappy, and each of them have like kind of their different angle on the way that they want the teams to like resolve the mysteries.
Yeah.
And so I do think it's really interesting how in this case they're more focused on the hauntings and the crime.
Yep.
Whereas in the first episode of Where Are You, they were more invested, it seemed, almost in the crime and came across the haunting as a result of that.
Yes. Yeah. So, the crime was the impetus versus yours. The haunting was the impetus. I'm also looking forward to, and maybe for the next one, I'll do one of these, but when it's, gosh, again, there's so many names for them, but like a pup named Scooby-Doo, where like they're all preteens and like red herring, they always think like, we'll get into that one too. And like that.
Oh, we shall be doing a pup named Scooby-Doo.
For sure.
Yeah, all there's so many different incarnations to tackle. I love it.
Truly, yeah.
And many more to come.
Many more. All right. Well, thanks for watching / listening, everyone.
But yeah, tell everyone likes us. Anyone who likes Scooby-Doo. Yeah.
Tell your maybe don't tell your kids. Or tell your kids. I don't know.
If you tell your bus driver, don't do it while they're driving the bus.
Yes. Don't like try and show them, or like, I don't know, maybe put on like the bus like speaker system. Blast the podcast through that so everyone has to listen.
Yeah. Really force it onto people.
Yes.
That's the best way to make a connection, is by forcing people into liking things that you have no idea if they'll like or not. So really just like Clockwork Orange it, peel their eyes, you know, sit them down. Yeah.
Like next time you're getting like a haircut or something, like ask to like borrow your hairdresser's phone and just subscribe to us on their phone, on like whatever listening service or watching service you're on, and just like auto subscribe to people. Like,
set it as their ringtone too. So if someone calls them, like they'll just like start hearing us talking.
Oh, I love that.
It'll be like, oh wow. It'll either make people really want to get phone calls, or it will make people throw their phones out of the window. So,
but either way, no press is bad press.
None.
Get it out there.
Exactly. I'll take it. Sorry if you have to buy a new phone, but the things we have to do to get this out there.
There's like some fine print that like, you can't actually see or anything, but like we're not liable for any of your belongings or phones or friendships.
Sorry. If you actually take our advice on this, that's totally on you. So.
We are not liable for any of your own mistakes. I mean, great choices.
Great choice.
You make. All right. Well, like, bye.
Bye. I'll see you next time.
I
guess next week for more Saturday Morning Mysteries.
Thanks for tuning in to Saturday Morning Mysteries.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share, rate, review, leave us a like, and drop a comment. We post episodes every Saturday and bonus tune tangents whenever we feel like it. So please subscribe so you don't miss the shenanigans.
And if you want to follow us on YouTube, click the bell under the YouTube subscribe button to receive notifications when new videos are posted.
And if you want to subscribe to the podcast, we have no idea what you're listening to us on, so just hit the big subscribe button on whatever app you're using. We believe in you.
Give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram at SatmornMist, all the abreves, and let us know if you have any episode or show requests by emailing SaturdayMorningMysteries@gmail.com.
Thanks to Jenna Kendall for the logo design and to Ava Sakiki for the music used during this week's episode.
See y'all groovy kids next week on Saturday Morning Mysteries.